Hi guys, welcome to the Big Bunch family. Welcome to our channel. If you're new here, our channel is a family channel surrounding parenting, family building, and infertility. And so today I wanted to sit down and talk to you guys a little bit and give you the story of our infertility journey and of our journey to having our daughter. And you guys might also notice that I'm alone today and choosing to do this video alone, and that's because Sam and I made the decision to shoot videos about our infertility journey alone. And so I'm starting with our journey and kind of my perspective, but he's also going to be filming a video about like a husband's perspective of that and a male perspective of that and of everything that we went through. And that's because even though our infertility journey was obviously something we went through in our marriage and as a couple, it was also very personal and it affects everyone differently. And even if you're in a relationship and you're trying to have a baby with someone and not parent alone, it's still affecting that person differently. And I think it still affects someone trying to become a mother versus someone trying to become a father differently. And so even though we share in most of our experience, we wanted to give our own perspectives. And so he will be filming a video probably in the next week or so about the male perspective of our journey. And so I'm kind of starting it off. Started trying in, like I said, the fall of 2018, and it was a very hopeful time in our marriage. We had just gotten married, we were focused on being newlyweds, we were focused on trying for our baby, our careers were relatively new, and we really didn't think that we would struggle to get pregnant. I didn't think that it would happen right away. I knew people that took a while to get pregnant, and it is normal to take up to a year to get pregnant even without infertility. So I thought it would happen within the first year, but I didn't think that it would necessarily happen within the first month. I wasn't like disappointed when it didn't happen in the first month. So yeah, we started trying, and like I said, we were very hopeful, and we were just enjoying being newlyweds, enjoying our lives together and our new lives together, and marriage and being husband and wife finally, and trying to build our family. And so I remember the first month that we started trying. No, I didn't believe that we were going to get pregnant our first month of trying, but I was hopeful and I knew it was possible. I've as much as I've seen people struggle, I've also seen people get pregnant their first month and be like, oh my god, I got pregnant on our first month. And at that point, I didn't think we would struggle with infertility, so I thought it was possible for us as well. And so I remember the first month of trying, you almost trick yourself into thinking that you are pregnant. Like every symptom, you're like, oh, maybe I'm pregnant, like I'm tired, or maybe you're just tired from work, but in your head, you're tired because you're pregnant, or your boobs hurt. Maybe your boobs hurt because your period's about to come or something, but in your head, maybe you're pregnant. And I remember the first month kind of doing that. And I think back now, and I remember like taking a pregnancy test our first month or our second month of trying. I don't even know why. Maybe it was just because we were trying and I wanted to see it. It was like the anticipation, the excitement, all of it. And then it was negative, but back then I had no feelings about that because to me that was normal. We didn't get pregnant the first or second month, and even though I was wanting a baby, it was pretty normal. So I was like, okay, we didn't get pregnant the first month, the second month, that's fine. Fast forward, so reaching the end of 2018, leading up to 2019, it's when I started to say like, okay, it's been about a year, like we've been trying and nothing's happening. And that's when I started to think like maybe something's wrong. But in all my doctor's appointments and everything, they never found any main indicators. And what I mean by main indicators are the top reasons why women struggle with infertility, which would be PCOS, endometriosis, something that's causing you to get pregnant but miscarry. None of those things were my story, none of those. So I was never diagnosed with PCOS, I was never diagnosed with endometriosis, I have never had a miscarriage, I do not have history of miscarriage. And so my doctors were like not concerned. They were like, oh yeah, we don't see any indication of these high risk things, and you guys it just probably hasn't happened yet. And so I followed that. But leading into the next year, I found it odd. it was like, okay, we don't have any indicators, but we're also not getting pregnant, right? And so leading into that year, I guess we kind of did lose a little bit of hope and started to struggle a bit, because now it was like, we don't have an answer to why we're not getting pregnant, but at the end of the day, we're not getting pregnant. And that's where things started to kind of take a turn, to where we went from hopeful to questioning if we were going to have a child, when we were going to have a child, and how we were going to have a child. And even though I think we remained positive and hopeful throughout our journey, there were moments where we weren't. There were moments where it definitely affected our marriage, where it definitely affected us as individuals, because I think particularly me, I always knew I wanted to be a mom, and now there was this roadblock saying no to something that I knew in my heart I was meant for. So now I was questioning, well, maybe I'm not meant for it, right? Maybe I'm not getting pregnant because maybe I'm not meant to be a mom. And that was not something that I could accept or would accept, because like I said, I've always wanted to be a mom, and it was a deal breaker for me, and it wasn't something that I was willing to accept. So at the end of 2019, we just kept trying, and it was pretty hard that year, because now this was the second year of trying, and it wasn't happening. Like I said, it wasn't happening. And I remember we did do things to kind of, I want to say, lessen the blow of that, like, of what you're going through when you're going through infertility. So we went on a lot of vacations. We tried to stay strong in our marriage. All in all, though, there was always this thing like, but we want a child. And even though our marriage was doing good and everything was doing good, and like I said, overall we're positive people, this wasn't something that, like, I couldn't accept that we were going to be just us. And what I mean by that is that if someone chooses to not have children, that is very different than going through infertility. If someone chooses to be a family, the family where you're a husband and a wife, and you're good with that, and you're living your life as husband and wife, and you do not want children, that is very different than infertility. But when a couple goes through infertility and they're not having a child, for me, that experience felt like our family was incomplete, and like we weren't fulfilling something that we were supposed to fulfill. I always felt that there was a child that was meant to join our family, and then not getting pregnant, I was just like, what is happening? Like, I'm not the most religious person, but I'm very spiritual, and in my spirituality, I always felt that there was a child that was meant to join this family. And so month after month not getting pregnant was like very confusing spiritually for me. And I think a turning point in our infertility journey happened at the end of 2019. Now it had been almost 2.5 years of trying. And I think that's where like a lot of the frustration started to set in, where, you know, there are people in your life who will know, like, it's up to you if you share that you're trying to conceive. But for us, we did share it. And people did try to support us. But people don't always know how to support an infertility journey. And there's other things in life where people are not going to know how to support you. But specifically for me, like, I didn't have people in my life that were also going through it at the same time I was going through it. So I think a lot of the support I found was through other people, through YouTube, through hearing other people's stories, through vlogs, through blogs, and through people who chose to share their journey. But I wasn't, there was no one that I was going through it with in that way except me and Sam. And so it was a very intimate struggle. And at the end of 2019, we kind of started to say, okay, regardless of the fact that we haven't got diagnosed with all these high-risk things, once you reach the point, so infertility is defined by taking more than a year to get pregnant, once we hit 2.5 years, even though there was no medical explanation for why we weren't getting pregnant, it's deemed that you have an infertility issue. And that would be if the doctors can't find a reason why you're not getting pregnant, then if it's taking you a year or longer to get pregnant, then it's just seen as unexplained infertility, which essentially means you do have an infertility issue, but we don't know what it is in the medical community because it's not these things that we look for. So at the end of 2019, we started to think about infertility treatments. And then we started to research that and talk about it a little bit. But it never seemed right for us. And for anybody going through the journey who is choosing to do infertility treatments, that's, if that's your journey, that's good, and that's good for you, and I wish you all the luck. But as we started to do the research, for us at that time, it wasn't right. I felt like we had been through so much, and going through infertility treatments is not easy. There's risk and your body goes through a lot, and I just didn't feel connected to it. I wanted a baby so bad, and I wanted us to go through parenthood together so bad, but something about it told me that this wasn't the way for us to do it. And so we just kept trying and kind of kept struggling, and struggled a lot with where to go from there and what to do and what was even meant for us. And for a while, I think we went through a couple of months at that time where I started to believe, Sam will say, I'm pretty sure in his video he will say that he never wavered in thinking that we were going to have a child, but I definitely did. That was around the time where that happened. So I started to think that it was never gonna happen and that I had to accept that, but then I couldn't accept it. So even going through that, I was trying to accept that we were never going to be parents, and then I just couldn't accept that. And I would go through like a roller coaster. And for those of you going through infertility, I'm sure you're going through this, where like one day you're like super hopeful, like, no, it's gonna happen for us, we're gonna find our path in this journey, and then the next day you feel discouraged by it. But then your want is so strong that you find strength to believe in it again. And that's kind of what I went through all of 2019. One week I would believe that we were gonna get pregnant this month. Then the next week I would find out I wasn't pregnant and be devastated. Then the next week I would find hope again. But that cycle is mentally, physically, and emotionally exhausting. And the thing is that it's mentally, physically, and emotionally exhausting personally, like for the person going through it by themselves, but also it's draining in your marriage as well. And I think that was a rough patch because we were still trying, but I had lost a lot of the hope that it was going to happen. So then the end of 2019, I want to say that we kind of put our minds away from trying. We kind of were like, maybe we need to focus on other things. All in all, that's really hard to do when you are a couple trying for a child, because people will tell you along your journey, if you're struggling, you will hear this. And for me, it was super annoying and not helpful, which is once you stop thinking about it, it will happen. And to me, as a soul, there is no stop thinking about it, because if you are trying, then that means you are not on any preventative measures, you are not on any birth control, because that wouldn't make sense. How would you be trying for a baby if you're on some type of preventative contraception? So if you are a straight couple and you are having sex, there's always a chance to get pregnant. And if you want a baby, in the back of your head, you know that you're having a sexual relationship with your partner. And so even if you try to put it out of your head, it's never really out of your head. So when people would say that, I'm like, how am I supposed to put it out of my head when it's the thing we long for the most? So that just never made sense to me. So at the end of 2019, though, I think our minds were a little distracted. And I think some of those distractions were actually good. So at the end of 2019, we decided to move into a 2-bedroom apartment, and we decided to focus on, we didn't have a child coming, we weren't pregnant, we weren't getting pregnant, but we decided to take a different approach and plan for our child and kind of manifest our child and be more positive in it. And so by then we had reached this turning point where it's like, no, we're not pregnant. Yes, we are struggling, but we're gonna plan for it anyway. And so we got a 2-bedroom apartment, and a lot of people were like, wait, why would you get a 2-bedroom apartment? You're not pregnant yet. And we were like, well, because we're preparing for our baby. And they were like, why? What baby? And we're like, we're preparing for our baby. So we moved into our 2-bedroom. We started looking at nursery ideas. We didn't do the nursery, but we knew exactly what we wanted to do for our nursery. And we moved in, and we really spent a lot of time making this home a home that we would want to raise a child in, a home that was comfortable, that was safe, that was just the type of home that I wanted to raise my child in, both visually and mentally. So we spent a lot of time strengthening our marriage at that point, and we spent a lot of time just building this home. And I'm not going to say it wasn't hard still, because it was, but we had reached a turning point to where we were being a little bit more positive. Yes, we would have our days. Yes, we would break down every month when we didn't find out we were pregnant, but we were staying positive, and we were just focused more on our marriage, more on building this house. And then 2020 happened, the pandemic happened, and that again was another turning point in our infertility journey. So March of 2020 happened, and New York City was the epicenter of COVID. We live in New York, and we were first hit, and we went into lockdown, and Sam and I took COVID pretty seriously. So 3 days into lockdown, we got sick, we got COVID from work. We were pretty sick. It was a pretty scary experience, and then thank God everything worked out. We were healthy it took a while, 2-3 weeks. And then we were still on lockdown, and that experience, we didn't want to get sick again, and we were still trying for a baby, and I was really scared that we were going to get pregnant finally during a global pandemic. And I remember we had a long conversation. We thought about stopping trying because of the pandemic, and that was a hard conversation. We had a 3-hour conversation on whether or not it was smart to continue trying to conceive even after everything we've been through in this pandemic. And all in all, we decided that, you know what, it hasn't happened for us, and we don't know when it's gonna happen, and let's just put our faith, let's just throw faith out there and have faith that if it happens, we'll be okay. But we took the pandemic pretty seriously, and that was one of the main reasons why, because even though we weren't pregnant, and even though there was no child in this house, we knew that we were trying for our baby and preparing for our baby, and we wanted our baby to come into this world healthy regardless of what was going on. And so we were on lockdown for a while, and even when things started opening up, we were personally on lockdown for, I want to say, like a few months after, and slowly relied on that. And during the pandemic, even though it was a very difficult time, it was a very difficult time for my family. We lost a lot of people. It was a very difficult time in the world, in New York and everything. We personally, in this house, everything was okay in the sense that we grew so much stronger in the pandemic. Being together every day for some people was horrible for their marriage, but for us, where we were in our marriage at that time, I think we needed to get away from the world and just be locked down together and focus on us. And we did just that. We didn't have anything else to do, and it was a time where you had to rely on the people that you lived with, and we did just that, and it really strengthened our marriage. However, 2020 was also a very lonely year. Like I said, we lost a lot of people, and we were in a pandemic, and the world looked grim. And not having a child added to that. wanting a child, going through an infertility journey still during that time added to that. For me, I started, even though I love this home, at that point I started to regret moving for a little bit, because now this second room was empty, and the home that we built at that time, the home that we built and everything kind of started to feel empty, and the world kind of felt empty, and it kind of added to that. And I was getting upset looking at our empty room that we bought this apartment with the hope that we would still get pregnant, that we would still welcome a child. And now we were in a whole global pandemic, and it felt like now we had this whole thing happen, this whole catastrophic, life-changing thing, and not just life-changing for us, life-changing for the whole world, this pandemic. And during that pandemic, we had strengthened our marriage, we had become even closer, we had grown this home to a place where now I wanted to raise a child in this home, and we still didn't get pregnant. And it started to feel like it was never gonna happen, and kind of we started to revert back to that place where it was really hard to think that we were never gonna welcome a child. And then honestly, in I want to say the beginning of the summer of 2018, I started to think about, was I meant to get pregnant, basically, or was I meant to welcome a child in a different way? And honestly, I started to do research on infertility. I started to watch other people's journeys of infertility, and I started to think about adoption. Now, for us, adoption has always been something that we're open to. So yeah, for us, adoption has always been something we were open to in our marriage. It wasn't a brand new concept, but kind of the timing of it was brand new. So we always said that we were gonna have a biological child first and go through pregnancy and that journey first, and then adoption later. We kind of always knew that we're open to adoption, but I don't think it had been brought up in our marriage for a couple of years, and I just think that we were going through this infertility journey, and now we reached this point. I was the first one to bring it up, and I remember it was because of a dream, actually. So I had a dream about a baby, but in the dream we had adopted a child, and then I woke up from that dream and I started to research adoption, and I started to think, hey, we didn't think that adoption was meant to be first. We thought we were going to go through a pregnancy first, and that's how we saw our journey. And when you're planning your life goals, your marriage, your future, you have a certain picture, and sometimes it's hard to let go of that picture. But at this point in our journey, the main goal was to become parents. And I want to say this, and say this loud and strong. Adoption is not a solution to infertility, but it is a solution to becoming a parent to someone who is struggling to become a parent. So if you are someone who's struggling with infertility, adoption is not going to cure that. Adoption is not going to cure that pain. You're still going to have to heal and deal with your journey of infertility and your feelings about that. However, adoption is a great way to become a parent. And if it's something you could do, and if it's something you're open to, then that's great. And I just want to say that for people who are watching who may be going through the same thing, I don't want to ever make it seem like adoption is a cure for infertility, because it is not. It is two completely separate journeys, but for us, it is a journey that we are open to, and we were open to in 2020. And so when I brought it up to Sam, it wasn't the first time that I said that I wanted to adopt a child, but it was the first time that I was saying, why don't we adopt the child now and worry about pregnancy later? And why don't we see what the adoption journey would be like so that we can have a child? And I was kind of saying it in the sense of, I had prayed and hoped to become a parent and to become a mother, and it wasn't happening through pregnancy, and infertility didn't feel right. But you know what did? Adoption felt right to me. So in all my research, we weren't getting pregnant. Infertility just didn't feel right. There was something about it. you could call it God, you could call it faith, you can call it whatever you want, but something was telling me that that wasn't right for me. At least at that time, that wasn't right for me. In the future, I have no idea if we would ever go through an infertility journey with infertility treatments. I have no idea what the future holds. But at that time, it didn't feel right. And if something doesn't feel right, I don't do it. But in our research, adoption did start to feel right for me. And so in the summer of 2020, we decided to start researching adoption. And we did a lot of research, and we found a very trusted agency. And we went through an entire journey of adoption. I am going to talk a little bit more about that on this channel. I can't talk about the after, but I will be talking about the journey. And I'm going to catch you guys up to that. So in the summer of 2020, during the pandemic, we decided to start the process of adoption. And it is a long process, and it can be longer for some than others. You never know when you're going to welcome a child when you start an adoption process. And we went through the entire process. We went through the entire back process, I want to say. Like, we went through all the classes, we got home study approved, and we waited. And in December of 2020, we were home study approved, and we really thought that, you know what, we had gone through all this infertility and this journey because we were meant to adopt a child. And it brought back a sense of hope, because for us, now we felt like, okay, this is what we were meant to do. And I really strongly felt that. I really strongly felt a connection with adoption, and we started to kind of get stronger again and reconnect again. And even though we weren't pregnant, we kept the hope that, you know what, we're not pregnant, but someone is, and our baby's on their way. And we weren't matched at that time, but we just kept that hope. And having the adoption be something that we were going through, it was kind of like, even though it's very hard to struggle with infertility and go through an adoption process, and adoption is also hard in its own way, there's difficulties with adoption as well, and it was hard, but it also brought a sense of hope, because every time the phone rang, it could be our baby, even though we weren't pregnant. So we went through that whole journey, and in December of 2020, we were home study approved, and we welcomed the new year with a new sense of hope, that we were going to adopt a child. We told our families, and there was this new sense of hope that we were going to welcome a child that year. And kind of, like I said, there are struggles in adoption too, because some people get matched really quickly, and once they're home study approved, they get matched and they build their family. And for us, we got approved, and then we got a couple of profile calls and almost got matched with a child. And then I believe, yes, it was August of 2021 that we found out that we weren't matched with the person that we really thought we would be matched with. And then August of 2021 was also when we found out we were pregnant with our daughter. And then we had a choice to make. Do we continue the adoption process while we're pregnant and maybe possibly welcome 2 children, or do we stop the adoption process and go through this pregnancy journey? And for a while, we thought that we were going to continue the adoption process and just maybe welcome 2 children. And although that sounds great and like a blessing, and it would have been a blessing had we decided that that was right for us, we decided at that time that we wanted to give our all into the child that we had, the child that had come into our lives, the child that I was pregnant with, and that any other journey, whether it be adoption or anything else in the future of how to build our family, we'd worry about that later, because we wanted to be fair to this child and put ourselves really in this season of pregnancy. Biggest reasons I wanted to start YouTube was to help other people who were going through that journey in the way that others helped me, and in the way that hearing other people's stories helped me. So today I just wanted to sit down and have this candid conversation and really share everything that we've been through. And I am going to make more videos on our infertility journey, as far as how we coped and just bringing awareness to that topic, because that is one of the main reasons we started the channel. It is something we want to bring awareness to. We were blessed to have a pregnancy, to experience a pregnancy. Not everyone who goes through infertility ever experience a pregnancy or parenthood, and I am blessed and thankful every day for my daughter and for the fact that I was able to experience a pregnancy. I have no idea what the future holds for our family as far as family building. We're definitely going to bring you guys along that journey. It may entail an adoption journey for sure. We're still open to an adoption journey, but as of right now, we are enjoying our baby girl. She's only 5 months old, and we're enjoying every minute of it. And so as of right now, that is not in the cards anytime soon, but we don't know what our journey will look like. It may look different than the last time. It may not be a pregnancy journey. It may be an adoption journey. It may, who knows, it could be whatever God wants. But we know that we are so blessed to have been able to experience a pregnancy, and it was a beautiful experience, and I love my daughter, and we are truly blessed. And to anyone going through infertility right now, I just wanted to make this video and put a little hope out there and show you guys everything that a couple can go through, and that you really can come out of it the other side. And it may not look like our journey. Like I said, some people never get pregnant, but I just want to have people have hope that it can still happen. And also, your family may not look the way that you planned it, but it will look the way that it's meant to look, and everything works out in the end the way it's meant to work out. So I want you to keep strength and keep hope and faith, and just try to look for inspiration in other people, strength in other people. And I really hope that for everybody that's going through infertility, I really hope that you find strength and hope and guidance and a blessing, and I really hope that you are blessed with a child in whatever way that's meant. So I just wanted to sit down and have a kind of conversation today, opening up about our past and our infertility journey and what we went through to become parents. And I will be making future videos just sharing infertility awareness and more on our journey. I wanted to give you guys that backstory, and I truly hope that just hearing our story and sharing some of the struggles and the hopes, the losses and the triumphs and everything in between, I hope that I help someone who's going through the same thing we went through. As I said, Sam will be uploading a video very soon on the male and the husband perspective of what we went through. So if you're a couple going through infertility, watch those together, watch these two videos together, see how that's different, support each other. And I just want to make sure that everyone who's going through that, you feel supported. I hope you find support in this channel. I hope you find support in friends and family in any way you can. I'm gonna end this video here, and stay tuned for future videos. Stay tuned for more fertility awareness information, and I hope you guys found hope and inspiration in our story, and stay tuned for another video.